Okay, that took about a couple minutes to me to push out the file, so this is still real time. I don't have the little clock thing going. We'll do that in the future. But I've got now, in a sense, we've got a bunch of information here. That there is not a block. And this one here is not a block, but there are blocks defined. If you want to know if your blocks are defined, you just say block, and you look around, right? And we're using, of course, the -b, so we don't have to deal with all this stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and insert this block here, which is the plate steel, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it exactly up as high as I want it. In other words, a Y of 10 inches. Since I knew that, I'm going to hit that OK. And it didn't bring it, it actually brought it down there, so I was actually wrong about that. I'm going to erase this and zoom extents. I'm going to go ahead and bring in insert that plate steel, and I'm going to specify on screen where the node, remember node is a great thing there. And now I'm going to move that up, if you would, click at 10.25 angle 90 degrees, and we've got this other block put in there in the more or less the right spot. One thing you might want to do when you're defining your block is to not put dimensions on layer 0. We're just putting dimensions in there essentially for Inventor, and we're going to rotate this now up to some point where we want it to be. Now that's going to be a little bit tough, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and draft a line right over the top of that. So sorry about that. Line from, I'm going to just go from the mid of this here, okay, and then right out. And what we're going to do right now, we're going to rotate and use a reference here, because we're going to take that so it goes right through that point there. So we're going to grab, left click, and hopefully that point there is pretty close. We're going to left click, we're going to left click on this, the entity spacebar, we're going to C for copy, ref for reference, and we're going to realize we're kind of going off the wrong point here. Reference there, the second point is there, and I'm going to turn F8 on, and I could kind of raise it up and down. So I want to change my rotation point now. We'll do this again. We're going to grab it, left click, and then we're going to more or less left click spacebar, C for copy, change my base point. My base point is now going to be the intersection of that. And we're going to go with reference from at that point, shift right click to near. Again, these are AutoCAD drafting we're doing here. Now we can kind of go to a point here. We want to go to, if you would, to the intersection of that point there. And that's going to kind of give us some general sense of what we might want to do when we kind of go ahead and do all this together. So that angular measurement. And if you notice here, we rotated out, so we should be generally okay. We now have 3 pieces. We can go ahead and save this. So when we're saving, what we've got is really 2 blocks and then some geometry if you want to steal it and bring it back. And more importantly, the dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Get rid of that. Clean everything out if you would. You might not want to get rid of it. You might want to right block it. Kind of getting all of your... And in all reality, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea now to move this entire thing so that logical point, which is down here, that 0, 0 is at 0, 0. So I'm going to go ahead and move, if I would. I guess I could grab everything, right? Using my here, I could go and look for that node point, which is right here, right? Spacebar, move, and then give it a point of 0, 0, 0. Zoom extents. There we have it. We can now get rid of everything else. Erase cross. I'm just getting rid of all the extra information we have in here. And we're at 0, 0. We got a bunch of 3, 1, 2 blocks, but one of them is repeated. We've got some geometry here. We got some extra stuff. We got some dimensions. If you remember, edit. The reason why we dimensioned each of these is so that when it comes into Inventor, those blocks will be editable. And now we're going to close the block editor. Save changes to guess it, yes. And we're going to hope when we do this, we know where we're putting it. File. For now, we're going to save as. I'm going to put it right up the top in the short term, and then we're going to make sure we start our Inventor file structure correct. So I'm going to put up at the C drive, in my case, users, and I've got Mark Patak, and I've got a K drive, and I'm just going to call this February 7th base drawing. So I'm going to hit a save here. That's all closed. I can close that out. We're going right into Inventor. Note, this is all real time once again, and we're going to go into Inventor. I'm going to use Sketchblocks is what we're kind of trying to do here. You got to know where Inventor is. Double click on it. We're going to right away make sure we set up a file structure or a project so things stay together. Though if you don't, you can kind of jury-rig it later to get them there, but this idea of file structure is incredibly important. You generally copy whole file structures and not just individual files. You notice Inventor loading up a little slow on this machine. This is on this has 1 gig of RAM. It's a 2.18 megahertz Mac running Windows Vista. So we're going to go to projects here. You see here I can go ahead and make a new project, a new user project. I change my name up here. We're going to call this February 7th Truss. And you know, as I take and do the name first, and then I tell it where I want it to be. I want it to be in Mark and Patak. I think I've been putting everything in documents and then in Inventor files. This is kind of how it sets up in your machine. So there it is. Hit OK. You see it's gone there. This is the file. This looks very similar to Civil 3D. We're going to finish out. Hit done. We're going to do a new. In this case, when we're using English, so I'm going to grab not Patak Gusset, but February 7th Truss. And we're using inches, so I'm using a standard inches template apart. And you're going to see this is where it starts to digress from what you did before, because the process here is going to be pretty straightforward, we hope, in terms of going from blocks to Inventor sketch blocks. We've got this here. Remember, we then do an insert, and we have to know where our stuff is at. Of course, our stuff is out in Mark Patak. In this case, it is in Documents. And it is in the K drive, I believe. JK. Have to go back up. I think it's actually up a little bit higher. Mark Patak. K drive. And you probably would want to move that file where it's supposed to be. And Inventor try is not what we called it, is it? That's February 4th, so try with dimensions. That one there, February 4th. So you got to know where your stuff is. I'm going to stop this, give myself a penalty for not knowing where I put my files.